are coming on the air tonight with what's looking more and more like the Musk mission at the White House. The president's right-hand man taking center stage at a cabinet meeting he's not even technically a part of. The new threats as the president tells federal workers to get in line behind the world's richest man. And the new details on the first death from measles in this country in a decade. What the feds are doing now and what you should know is this fast-moving outbreak sweeps across at least 8 states. Then shockwaves here in Los Angeles and beyond after the death of actress Michelle Trachtenberg, the new reaction from her co-stars, and the questions about what may have happened. Plus, the 24-karat conspiracy theory back in the spotlight thanks to the White House. Why President Trump thinks all that gold stored at Fort Knox may not actually be there. So we sent our reporter to Kentucky for a reality check. And an answer we've never heard before from a bombshell interview on Call Her Daddy today.
Once the news broke and how everything was handled by media and the White House, how do you think it should have been handled?
What Monica Lewinsky's saying now about one of the most well-known scandals in American history, coming up later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, on assignment in L.A. tonight, but back home in Washington any minute, we're expecting to see one of the leaders of the free world in the Oval Office, perhaps with one of the other leaders of the free world, because Elon Musk, he seems to be everywhere, all at once today with the president, his boss, his friend. He's dominating that new administration's first cabinet meeting. You see him there. He's on the left. He's speaking in that black hat, tripling down on his plans to slash federal jobs and admitting to some Doge growing pains.
It was a pulse check with you. Do you have a pulse? Do you have a pulse and 2 neurons? So if you have a pulse and 2 neurons, you can reply to an email.
Those people are on the bubble, as they say. You know, they're going to be gone.
With USDA, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola prevention.
And the White House says federal agencies need a plan now for large-scale layoffs by March 13th. That's 2 weeks from now. So we're circling that date on the old calendar. The president says the EPA, for example, will slash 65% of its workforce. That's like 12,000 people. And inside these agencies, you've got 1 million people facing more pressure directly from the president to hit send on that email justifying their jobs. One leader at the VA, speaking to our team anonymously because of fear of backlash, tells us, in their words, it's leading to paralysis and nothing is getting done. I want to get to Gabe Gutierrez, who is live for us near the White House. I haven't looked at my phone in like 50 seconds, Gabe. I don't think that Oval Office spray has begun yet, because unless I'm misunderstanding it, the president may appear in front of reporters again. He may take more questions, as we saw already today, with Elon Musk basically by his side. We've been watching this push and pull between Musk and some of these federal agencies. It feels like if there was a tug of war, it's pretty clear today that Elon Musk is winning it.
Well, Hallie, right now we don't have any indication whether we're going to see the president or what exactly that EO signing, executive ordering signing will be, but we will keep you posted. But as you said, this was an incredibly unusual, let's call it, cabinet meeting with Elon Musk standing up in that room and cabinet members applauding him, President Trump heaping praise on Elon Musk, which, as you know from covering the first administration, Hallie, it is usually the cabinet members heaping praise on Donald Trump. No one else in the room. But Elon Musk defended his actions for Doge. He defended that email he sent a couple days ago that riled up a lot of federal workers across the government, asking for them to put forward and to tell in an email the 5 things that they had accomplished last week. He said that this wasn't about any sort of review. He just wanted to make sure that those workers had a pulse. And then President Trump came back and said that those workers might be fired by suggesting that if they don't respond to that, they could be on the bubble. So highly unusual, Hallie. And yes, Elon Musk spoke for a good chunk of that first part of that meeting.
So what's the expectation for the days to come? Because this cabinet meeting, obviously a milestone, significant. It was the first one. We saw Senate-confirmed cabinet members as well as nominees who have not been Senate-confirmed yet showing up there. We also know that President Zelenskyy is set to visit the White House later in the week, right? So a day of developments in what it will be a week of them.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of developments. You first mentioned, the now agency heads are looking for a plan on how to reorganize their departments by March 13th. We're looking forward to that. But more immediately, we're looking at a visit from President Zelenskyy on Friday. The president talked about that again today. He says that they're going to be signing an agreement. We understand that'll be an agreement for the U.S. to access those rare minerals inside Ukraine. President Trump saying that the U.S. will recoup some of its money. But President Trump also saying for the first time today that he does believe that Vladimir Putin will probably have to make some concessions. And Hallie, that's something I've pressed the president on, 2 weeks ago, and he wouldn't specifically answer whether he thought Russia should give up anything. Today, he said that, of course, he repeated his point that he thinks this war would have never happened if he were in the White House. But today, he also said that if it weren't for him, he thought Russia would want to take all of Ukraine. So we're certainly looking ahead to Friday, the next step in a potential peace deal and that minerals deal between Russia and Ukraine and the U.S., Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much for that. Let's take you overseas tonight, where the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages have made their way to Israel in just the last hour, as the future of the fragile ceasefire deal in that region faces a key deadline coming up on Saturday. And so many questions now on when phase 2 could actually start, what that long-term future of Gaza will actually look like if and when this war ends. And the backdrop to that, some new reaction in Gaza to what President Trump apparently wants the future of Gaza to look like. In this controversial AI-generated video shared by the president, this is what you're looking at right here. Beaches, belly dancers, Hotel Trump Gaza, an area he's repeatedly called, his words, the Riviera of the Middle East. Watch.
Are you owner Gaza? If you are owner Gaza, so you don't know anything about Gaza, because this video is ridiculous.
This thing won't be happening, never ever. This is our land, our memories, our family, our friends, our schools. This is our life.
I want to bring in Matt Bradley now. We'll talk more about some of that new reaction in just a second, but let me start with the news that we've heard in just the last 45 minutes or so. The bodies of some of those hostages just transferred. What else do we know?
Yeah, it sounds as though they're about to be handed over to the custody of the Red Cross. That's when they're going to undergo an expedited testing by Israeli officials to make sure those bodies are who Hamas says they are. And that's the real issue here. Remember, there was a big snafu a week ago involving the body of Shira Bibas, the mother of those 2 children who were also killed, that actually ended up being one of the wrong bodies. And it really cast a spell over, caused problems for this peace treaty and almost ruptured it. Now it looks as though they're going to be going through this quick testing, and then more than 600 Palestinian prisoners are going to be released from Israeli prisons. This consistent with the tit for tat on both sides of this deal, which has really been, it's endured quite a lot. There's been a lot of problems between Hamas and Israel, but it's survived in a really unlikely way to the very end of the first phase of the deal. The real issue here is, Hallie, what happens with the next phase? There's been no sign that either side has been negotiating to go from phase 1 to phase 2. Phase 2 would see a more sort of permanent truce and possibly the full withdrawal of Israeli troops. It doesn't look as though anybody has made any effort to get to that yet. So once we reach Monday, once we reach the end of this first phase, which, again, it's defied the odds, we don't know if we're going to be seeing this peace continuing or this truce continuing.
If and when this war does end, Matt, one of the biggest questions is going to be what happens to Gaza, which has been largely decimated, as you know, in this war. President Trump clearly has a vision. This new AI video has come out. We're just learning now. It appears to have spread initially from pro-Israeli accounts that embraced AI. You see some of it here. It shows, Elon Musk eating, pita, this golden Donald Trump statue, et cetera. And it is creating some controversy around the world, including in the region.
That's right. I mean, we've heard from Hamas. We've heard from Palestinian Mujahideen, a group that had some of their own hostages in the Gaza Strip. They were just talking about how absurd and ridiculous this video was. You saw those people that our team in Gaza reached out to, spoke to them in English just now. They were talking about how ridiculous this looks. I mean, it really does look nothing like the Gaza Strip. It looks nothing like the people of the Gaza Strip. Even if by some miracle the Gaza were to be rebuilt in the way you see in that video, which seems insanely unlikely considering what we're seeing, the culture is a deeply conservative one in the Gaza Strip. So seeing Donald Trump dancing with belly dancers, cash falling from the sky around Elon Musk, which is another sequence in that video, a giant golden statue of Donald Trump himself towering over the Gaza Strip. For many folks in the Gaza Strip, this doesn't sound like so much of a threat that this might actually happen, that they might actually be evicted from Gaza. It sounds more like a joke.
Part of this, though, Matt, and I think why it's also raising so many eyebrows is that the White House, there are those around the president who had tried to cast his idea of a Riviera of the Middle East as kind of a negotiating tactic, right? A way of strong-arming leaders in the region, Arab leaders specifically, to come up with something better, their own plan. Now, with the release of this video, it's either a doubling down on that tactic or an acknowledgement that that tactic was actually what the president wants to see happen as a reality, less as a negotiating tactic.
Yeah, we heard that. Yeah, we heard that from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, basically saying that, this is actually meant to incentivize Arab leaders to come up with their own plan. Yeah. Well, Arab leaders have huddled. They didn't come up with the plan. It's not as though, Hallie, Arab leaders and people throughout the Middle East haven't been trying to solve this problem for generations after generations. It's not as though people are not, scratching their heads for years trying to figure this out. So to act as though a Trump threat like this one is somehow going to motivate people in a way that it hadn't before, I think that's kind of looking at this in possibly a naive way. So, what we're seeing here is a lot more anger than solutions.
Yeah. Matt Bradley live for us there in Tel Aviv. Matt, thank you. Back here at home, breaking in just the last couple of minutes, we're learning about a new case of measles in Texas tonight near Dallas that is not believed to be connected to the outbreak in West Texas. It's happening already. So a new outbreak of measles coming at the same day that we've learned about the first death in this country from measles in a decade, a child who'd been hospitalized as part of that fast-moving outbreak. All we know about that patient, that this kid was preschool age, this child, unvaccinated, that they went into the hospital in Lubbock, Texas last week. The head of that hospital, in just the last couple of minutes, saying this. Watch.
We have known that we've had measles in our community. We are now seeing a very serious consequence of what happens when we have measles in our community.
This outbreak in rural West Texas, so again, the one that's separate from the Dallas case that we just told you about, has infected more than 120 people. That's double the number of cases that we talked about here on this show just a week ago. Right? The number of cases keeps climbing, as had been anticipated, as they'd been dreading, really. Most of the people infected are unvaccinated. Most of them are kids and teenagers, with doctors now sounding the alarm, saying people should get the measles shot ASAP before it's too late. Sam Brock is joining us now. So as we talk about this outbreak, centered in Texas, but clearly not the only one, as we're learning about this case in Dallas now, right? Talk us through the latest details on what is becoming a real alarm bell for so many people now around the country.
The geography is notable, right? Because Gaines County is where you have 80 or so cases, according, Hallie, to the state of Texas. But we've seen cases reported as far north as the northern tip of the Panhandle. And now the Dallas area in Rockwall that you just mentioned, that information coming to light within the last hour or two. A couple of notes on that one. As you said, there's no direct connection, according to health officials, between the Dallas area case and the ones in West Texas. They are right now separate, but monitoring. An outbreak technically is 3 related cases or more. Right now, we know about 1 in the Dallas area, and also sort of anomalous compared to what we've been talking about earlier. The case in the Dallas area is an adult, according to health officials. The 124 that you're looking at for the state, though, and this excludes the one we just learned about, but that's throughout the state of Texas, are almost all, Hallie, younger children. 100 plus are below the age of 18. We talked about some of those data points before. This encompasses 9 counties, 18 hospitalized. Here's some new information we just got from Covenant Health as well. Covenant is the hospital system that is caring for a lot of these patients in Lubbock County. They just said that it's actually more than 20 kids who have been hospitalized, all of them unvaccinated. And so there's also several other patients, they said, that are in intensive care. This is all relatively new information, I believe, that we didn't have before this press conference started. So it does seem like the severity is arguably a little bit worse than originally thought. That said, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, doubling in terms of the rate of spread every single week. It went from 30 to 60 to 90 to 120 now over the course of 2 weeks. So it's alarming, but not surprising, given how infectious the measles is. It's way more infectious, doctors tell me, than the flu or COVID, it sits in the air for like an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yes.
And what Doctor said earlier today is if you're in the ER or any space for that matter, and you're not vaccinated and someone there is measles or measles positive, you have a 90% chance of contracting measles.
I have to tell you, Sam, we're here in L.A. today. I'm on assignment for a different story for Nightly, but it was here 10 years ago that I covered the measles outbreak then that was spreading across the country. And at that time, you had younger doctors who had simply never seen something like this because it was considered eliminated in this country 25 years ago. Now you've got not just the one a decade ago. What's happening now, these questions that some folks are having about vaccinations, which have widely been proven to be safe, according to health experts here, all of it happening as we have this new health secretary in place now, coming into place, potentially. Yeah. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., of course, who's going to take over the nation's health agencies, who has raised conspiracy theories about the efficacy of vaccinations.
Yes, that's correct. And also someone speaking on behalf of the nonprofit or with the nonprofit that RFK Jr. used to be connected to, but no longer is once he took this HHS position, suggested recently that it's actually the vaccines themselves that are giving kids measles. There is zero truth to that statement. There's not a single case that would substantiate that theory. It does not exist. Doctors say that you take vaccines, obviously, to stimulate a response in your body that can present symptoms. It's not the actual disease. It's symptoms on a much lighter scale that might be associated with what you would get if you contracted the disease. But there's no direct connection between the two other than that you're protecting yourself. 95% protection from one dose, 97% for the second dose, Hallie. And it is also worth noting that before 1989, the guidance was one shot. So you might want to consider a second dose or a booster if you got yours before that.
Sam Brock, thank you very much for being all over that one for us tonight. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Also tonight, a new warning that egg prices could spike even more by the end of the year. Hate to break it to you, but that's coming from the USDA, which says they could see a 41% jump, obviously because of the bird flu outbreak we've been talking about that's killed 166 million egg-laying chickens in the past few years. This whole thing could become a big problem for the Trump administration. Remember, the president ran on trying to get prices down. The economy, we heard about it over and over again from voters who backed the president. But right now, look at this. New numbers show that about 53% of Americans say they do not approve of the job the president is doing on the economy. The White House, you're now seeing the administration lay out a plan for how they're going to stop so-called eggflation. The Ag Secretary today saying they're going to invest up to $1 billion on things like vaccines and therapeutics for chickens and also import more eggs to try to, get the supply and demand situation a little bit more evened out. Aaron McLaughlin joins us now. It's a big deal, Aaron, for people's wallets, for their budgets, and for the Trump administration. Almost symbolically, the egg prices becoming a very visceral way that people are relating to what's happened economically here.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And we have been expecting this new strategy to be announced for days now, appearing this morning in an op-ed inside the Wall Street Journal. Let me just walk you through what the U.S. Agriculture Secretary is calling a five-pronged strategy, about $1 billion being dedicated, according to the op-ed, to this effort, up to $500 million for biosecurity measures. Those are measures that are going to make it more difficult for infected wild birds to access these farms. Another measure, up to $400 million of financial relief for farmers with impacted flocks, exploring the use of vaccines and therapeutics for laying chickens. Interesting there that it's exploring the use of vaccines. Some had wondered whether or not the USDA would come out today and approve a vaccine, but this announcement stopping short of that. Also removing regulatory burdens on egg producers and considering temporary import options. I've been speaking to experts and they're saying that this is a good start, but, this is going to be a long-term effort. There is no quick fix when it comes to the bird flu and then subsequently skyrocketing egg prices.
The idea that there is no quick fix for bird flu is exactly where the problem comes from, right? Because we know that has been such a driver of these higher egg prices. You talk about this strategy here to combat not, of course, the prices, the bird flu, et cetera. What's the timeline on something like that, Aaron? Are we talking about relief within a matter of weeks, months? Will it take longer?
I mean, at this point, it seems from experts I'm talking to be open-ended. One expert that I was just speaking with told me that they still have yet to identify the source of the bird flu in mammals that are carrying the virus and then passing it along to the birds that are infecting flocks nationwide. So there's still much more work to be done, much more work needed on a potential vaccine. And this expert also pointing out that this idea that we might be able to import our eggs to bring down the price of eggs across the United States. She was saying, well, where are you going to get those eggs from? Which countries specifically, considering that bird flu is not just isolated to here in the United States, it's also found in other countries as well. So all questions, this plan is broad and short on specifics. So we're waiting for more specifics from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Aaron McLaughlin all over it for us tonight. Aaron, good to see you. Thank you. To New York now, where police tonight are investigating the cause of Michelle Trachtenberg's death at just 39 years old, with a new reaction now coming in from those who knew her, who loved her, who worked with her. I know you remember Michelle Trachtenberg. She's like this millennial icon, right? She was in shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She was in Gossip Girl. She was in Harriet the Spy back in the day. Watch.
I want to see the whole world, and I want to write down everything. Hey, what are you writing? Notes. Can we read them? Can you read this?
Police say they found Trachtenberg's body early this morning in a New York City apartment after a 911 call. They say they do not suspect foul play. In the last year or so, some of Trachtenberg's Instagram posts raised some concerns from fans about her health, but look how she responded at the time, saying, hey, she wasn't struggling, that there were, in her words, no problem. Let me get right to Chloe Malas on this now. This was 39 years old, I think stunning to so many, especially in the generation that kind of grew up with Michelle Trachtenberg, watching her develop in her career as an actress, as, you know, we all grew up too. What happened? Do we have any clues at all here?
Right, Hallie. I mean, I grew up watching Michelle Trachtenberg on screen. We're the same age. This is so devastating for those that have known her since she was a little girl. She started out her film career when she was just 9 years old, when she had her breakout role in Harriet the Spy. And look, like you said, she was really active on social media, and she wasn't shy to comment back to people that were criticizing her appearance. She was just spotted downtown here in New York City at a restaurant that's incredibly popular just last week. She also posted on social media about getting her hair done the other day. So obviously people had no idea if she was suffering with any sort of health struggles behind the scenes. But like you said, police found her unresponsive in her New York City apartment earlier today. There are a lot of reports out there that possibly it was her mother that initially found her and called 911. But in a statement to NBC News, a representative for Michelle Trachtenberg saying that it is with great sadness to confirm that Michelle Trachtenberg has passed away and that the family requests privacy for their loss. But they're not sharing, Hallie, any other further details at this moment.
But so many people who worked with Trachtenberg are remembering her tonight, right?
Right. And one of those is actually from Harriet the Spy, and it's Rosie O'Donnell. And she took to social media to say that it's heartbreaking, and she loved her very much, and that she wished that she could have helped. And she alluded to Michelle having struggles over the last couple years. But again, there's just a lot that we don't know, but the tributes are continuing to pour in. And she, you know, was also in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She was in Gossip Girl and also played these iconic characters on TV as well.
Chloe Malas, thank you for staying on top of this one. Really appreciate that. We've got a lot more in the show when we come back, including whether a new move from the governor here in California may finally mean freedom for the Menendez brothers. We'll tell you the latest, plus the changes to who gets special access to the president, or at least access, period, and what it could mean for how news reaches you. So a family spokesperson for the Menendez brothers says today she is beyond thrilled that California's governor is ordering a parole board here to do a so-called risk assessment on the two men currently serving a life sentence for killing their parents. Listen.
And that is a really important first step to commutation. It is not a guarantee. Okay. So it's a really important first step, but there are no guarantees.
Okay, so what does this mean? What is an important first step here, this risk assessment? It's basically an investigation that experts do to decide whether these brothers, the Menendez brothers, are fit to go back out into the real world. Here's Governor Gavin Newsom on his podcast just today. Watch.
The question for the board is a rather simple one. Do Eric and Lyle Menendez, do they pose a current, what we call unreasonable risk to public safety?
Remember, this case was huge back in the 90s when it was all happening. Wall-to-wall coverage all across the country. The subject of books, documentaries, podcasts, more for years. Now it's getting a new look as these brothers go down multiple potential paths toward freedom. One option is clemency from the governor, based in part, depending on whatever this risk assessment is going to show. There's also a hearing coming up. You see that in the middle on whether the brothers could be resentenced. And then a habeas corpus petition challenging the conviction, although we know the LADA says he's against a new trial. Still, multiple paths there. Liz Kreutz is joining us now to talk through it. Let's start with that path on this risk assessment idea, because that's basically about whether the Menendez brothers could be like at a high risk for committing more crimes if they were to be released, right?
Yeah, so basically the parole board's now going to be looking into how they've spent the past 35 years in prison, what they've done to make themselves better men. And that's actually why the family who supports the brothers are so happy about this move, because they feel like that's their strongest argument to get the Menendez brothers out. We've seen some of the prison files that they're going to be looking over, and through that you see that they have done a lot of work to make themselves better, to be rehabilitated. They have helped create a prison green space in the prison that they're in. They've helped create programs to help some of the other inmates, to help other inmates talk about childhood trauma like they say they endured. They, of course, argue they acted in self-defense because of years of abuse by their father. So all of that is going to be looked at as the parole board now makes this assessment, and they have 90 days to do so now.
Okay, so the parole board has 90 days to make this assessment. On a separate but parallel track, you've got the L.A. district attorney finishing his review of the case, and Governor Newsom has said he's going to wait until that district attorney thing is wrapped up until he makes a decision on clemency here, right? So how long will that take?
Yes, these sort of paths, they're separate paths, and now they're starting to converge a little bit here, because the third path, this habeas path for a new trial, we can kind of put that aside. That's the one the DA came out against, and it's the hardest path. So really, we have clemency from the governor, and then we now have the resentencing path. There's a hearing next month for resentencing. A judge ultimately will get to make the decision there if they should get this new sentence. But if that judge does make the decision to give them a new sentence, it does go to the parole board and the governor. So ultimately, that's where these will come together. So the findings.
What you're saying is it's coming down to Newsom.
Ultimately coming down to Newsom and the parole board. So this is actually critical, either path. The findings of this report critical for their release.
Are we thinking in the calendar year 2025? Are we thinking beyond that? Do we know?
It's hard to say. I think certainly the hearing is next month, but it's very likely the judge will wait to get the findings from this report before making their decision, and that will come after the hearing. So at least a few more months still, for sure.
Liz Kreutz, it's good to see you here in Los Angeles.
Great to
Your
meet
home
you.
bureau. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Vatican says the Pope had another peaceful night after spending his 13th day at a hospital in Rome. Remember, he's being treated for double pneumonia. He managed to sit up in a chair today, and doctors say that's really good. He's continuing to be on oxygen therapy. Unclear what his official condition is, if he's still in critical or not. Number 2, an American company is now picking back up the search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. 11 years after it disappeared. That was a massive story when it happened. This company says that because of the way that tech has progressed, they think they have a better shot at actually finding the wreckage. Back in 2014, that plane veered off course and basically disappeared with 239 people on board. The Malaysia government approved the search, but on a no fine, no fee basis. So we'll see how that goes. Number 3, Adnan Syed, whose murder trial was the focus of the podcast Serial, speaking today in a hearing, saying he wants to, quote, remain free and build a meaningful life as a judge considers whether or not to reduce his sentence. This case has kind of been a roller coaster. Syed was sentenced to life in prison for killing his high school ex-girlfriend, but he was set free back in 2022 after a judge vacated his sentence. Just last year, an appeals court then went back and reinstated the conviction. We're going to get a ruling from the judge on that sentence soon. We're going to keep you posted. Number 4, more than a dozen sea lions reported sick in Southern California in the last week, and it may be because of a toxic algae bloom, according to officials. They've gotten something like 14 calls about these sea lions in distress. They're telling people up at Malibu, don't go near them if you see them on the beach. Number 5, a new study says the number of Christians in this country is no longer declining as fast as it was. This Pew Research survey says the number that dropped off sharply starting in 2007, when about 78% of Americans ID'd as Christian, before starting to level off in the past 3 years. 63% of adults say they're Christian in 2024. Some new warnings now from some news organizations today after the White House says it will pick itself which news outlets will be part of that so-called press pool, meaning access to the president to share more broadly at meetings and events. And if you're like, well, why is this a big deal? It does break decades of precedent. Reuters, the Associated Press, and Bloomberg News, the wire services that are part of the White House permanent pool, saying that any effort to limit their participation threatens the spread of reliable information to people, communities, businesses, and global financial markets that heavily depend on our reporting. We've talked about what a pool is before. You know, I used to be a part of it at times when NBC was in the rotation. It's basically a group of journalists, and it's like network. So every 5 days, NBC would get a seat, or ABC, or CNN, or Fox, or CBS. There's wire services that are in there. There's a rotating number of other print and TV outlets who go in as well. Note, that's the pool, right? These people who come into the Oval, they've got the boom mics, they've got their notebooks, they've got the cameras, et cetera, to disseminate information to the rest of the world. If you opened up the Oval Office to every member of the media who wanted to get in, you'd have like hundreds of people there. It's not feasible. It's not realistic. That's why you have a pool. So why are they doing this? Why is the White House doing this? The press secretary says it's so that new media outlets can share some of the responsibility. Watch. All right, we'll get back to that sound in just a second, but let me get to Yasmin Vasugian, who's joining us now. So it's a development here, and I want to be like super honest with people and transparent in the way that we are. This isn't like about being navel-gazy here, and it's about looking at sort of what tradition and precedent has been. The White House Correspondents Association has always advocated for more access, just generally, to the president of any administration, of any political party in the past. You always want to get more people to see what's going on in the halls of power. That is like a basic tenet here. And so, you know, more access, a good thing. There's questions, though, about how this is going down. So explain it to us and why it matters to the broader public.
And by the way, it's more access that is unbiased, right, to make sure it's disseminated to the audience through a lens that doesn't give any kind of opinion as to kind of what is being said inside, for instance, the Oval Office. And I got to love how, by the way, your throwback to your time in the White House, I was kind of a part of the pool. You were a little bit more than kind of a part of the pool,
well, yes,
my friend.
But I was privileged to represent the pool, because when I just want to tell people, I think there's, like, people don't know, when you go in, I didn't go in as a pool reporter representing NBC, right? I went in representing all media, right? Like, I wasn't in there, they call it unilaterally. I wasn't in there unilaterally just for our network. Anything that I got, any question that I asked, any answer that I got from the first term in President Trump would go widely to everybody, right? And that's the point, is to sort of be the eyes and ears for the rest of the world.
Yeah. And because you're part of the big five, right? NBC, ABC, CBS, and every week we're like, okay, who's a member of the pool who's going to be taking the information from the White House? And as you mentioned, there's going to be a radio reporter as well as a rotation of print reporters that are part of normally this pool. And this has literally been since essentially the dawn of time of the White House Correspondents Association, which, by the way, began, for a little bit of a history lesson here, back, I believe, in 1914. But now the White House is essentially saying, nope, that's not going to happen anymore. We are changing historical precedent here, and we are going to determine who, in fact, is kind of a part of this quote-unquote pool. And what they're saying is, well, we want to open this up to, for instance, the streamers and the podcasters. And listen, we all know streamers, podcasters are becoming a much bigger part of the media landscape than they ever have been before. Folks are watching on streaming right now. This is NBC News Now, a part of NBC News. Yes, the bigger kind of sister, but nonetheless, you're watching on a streamer. They're saying we want to give access to those folks, and the White House press secretary is essentially saying they want to give them the awesome responsibility, a part of the awesome responsibility to be part of this pool. The White House Correspondents Association, though, saying in part in a statement expressing worry that this could give access to outlets that are more, for instance, friendly towards the president and his administration, giving a more partial view of the news coming out of the White House, and going on to say in a statement, it suggests the government will choose the journalists who cover the president. And I will say, as you mentioned, when it's coming from Reuters, when it's coming from Bloomberg, when it's coming from the AP, the wires, as you mentioned, they said it is essential in a democracy for the public to have access to news about their government from an independent free press. We believe that any steps by the government to limit the number of wire services with access to the president threatens that principle. So there's a lot, Hal, of back and forth here, which is not surprising.
Let me just also ask you about another sort of media story we'll put in that bucket related to the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos, people know who he is, of course, Amazon, Blue Origin, et cetera. He is retooling the opinion section of the paper. Not the news section, right, but the op-ed, the opinion section. He says they're no longer going to publish opinion editorials that are not supportive of, quote, free markets and personal liberties. What is he saying about this? What's the rationale? And what's the fallout? Because there's been some, right? The current editor is now a former editor.
Yeah, current editor of the op-ed pages has, in fact, resigned. There is talk of more resignations coming from the Washington Post amidst this as well. Folks that have been with the Washington Post for over decades now saying they no longer want to be working for the Washington Post so long as Jeff Bezos owns the paper. And his direct quote essentially saying he will not publish anything in those op-ed pages unless it's in defense of civil liberties and free markets. Just to be clear here, the definition of op-ed is opposite of editorial pages. This is a kind of an unprecedented moment that someone like Jeff Bezos, the owner of a paper like this, would make this decision about the opinion pages. I will also reference a statement that we got from Bezos, which was a little bit longer than what I just read, in which he said there was a time when a newspaper, especially one that was a local monopoly, might have seen it as a service to bring to the reader's doorstep every morning a broader-based opinion section that sought to cover all views. Today, the internet does that job. There is one person, Hal, though, that is obviously being vehemently supportive of Jeff Bezos amidst all this. And I think you can guess who that is, and that is Elon Musk.
Yasmin Vasugian, thank you very much for that
Thanks,
breakdown.
Hal.
Good to see you. When we come back here on the show, we sent our Stephen Romo down to Fort Knox for a reality check on a swirling conspiracy theory about gold. Hey, Stephen.
Yeah, Hallie, President Trump says he wants to get into the Fort Knox area to make sure that gold is still there, even though his top advisors, past and present, say it is. We talked to people in the area about what they think about this conspiracy theory. We'll bring that to you after this break.
To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight it's this pledge from the president to take a closer look at Fort Knox. Why? To check if the gold that's supposed to be there is actually there. Here's the thing. As far as we all know, the gold is there. There's nothing to indicate it's not. There's regular audits. The president's own current Treasury Secretary says the gold is there. His previous Treasury Secretary says the gold is there. But all of it speaks to the bigger issue of how the most powerful man in the free world gets his information and what he does with it. We sent our Stephen Romo down to Fort Knox for a reality check.
The people who live near Fort Knox have heard pretty much all the conspiracy theories.
Who would have taken the gold?
For as the missing gold, I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that.
About the federal facility at the heart of town where a huge chunk of the country's gold supply is stored. What's not a secret, President Trump's long love affair with gold, from bars with his name on it to signs outside his Manhattan home. And that famous golden escalator that started his political career. He's now making a promise to find out once and for all, is the gold still there?
We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there, because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold. Wouldn't that be terrible if we opened it up and there was no gold there? If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset.
Despite the president's speculation, there's no evidence the gold is not there, which we'll get into in just a bit.
Fort Knox is one of the most secure places in this country, so I am 100% sure that the gold is there.
But those conspiracies, almost as old as the first deposits back in 1937.
Minimum offensive fire until I signal bomb has been neutralized.
With the mystery driven by the 1964 James Bond film Goldfinger, after its villain tried to tank the economy by ruining the gold supply. Of course, the U.S. doesn't rely on gold anymore to back the dollar, a change finalized by Richard Nixon in 1971, but we still keep a ton of it, or really tons of it, locked up. An expert we asked told us it's basically collateral.
There might be foreign currency reserves, there might be gold reserves, and this increases the confidence that the dollar is sound.
The U.S. Mint says about half of the country's gold is at Fort Knox. The whole thing built under thousands of tons of steel and concrete, heavily guarded. And secrecy is part of the point.
This is for the unbelievers. Okay.
The vault only opened twice since FDR. The first time in September 1974 for a group of journalists and members of Congress to dispel rumors the gold was gone. The second time during the first Trump administration, when then Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin got a look for himself.
The gold was there when I visited it. I hope nobody's moved it. I'm sure they haven't.
So did Kentucky's Republican governor at the time, who's dismissing the conspiracies this week.
It is so ridiculously secured that it is not possible to sneak anything out of there.
In fact, it's so secure, they don't want us filming anywhere near that building that has the gold. This is about as close as we could get. So where could the president have gotten the idea that the gold might not be there? As with so many right-wing conspiracies, Alex Jones, the man who had to liquidate his assets to pay for massive defamation verdicts over the lies he spread about the Sandy Hook school shooting.
In the last 40-something years, most of our gold was sent overseas.
Then picked up in a tweet by Elon Musk, who said it'd be cool to do a walkthrough at Fort Knox.
Yeah, we want to go see it.
But even the president's new Treasury Secretary says everything is accounted for.
We do an audit every year, so the audit that ended the year September 30th, 2024, all the gold is present and accounted for.
It's all getting extra attention as the price of the precious metal hits records, close to $3,000 an ounce. But that gold at Fort Knox is not on the market. Back in town, residents embracing their role, and the people say they're ready for the president's visit, whenever that might be.
Oh, I'd love to see him come to Fort Knox. It'd be awesome.
The president wants to come. It's history for our kids.
Whether that proof would be enough to convince naysayers is an open question.
Stephen Romo is joining us, as you saw, from in front of Fort Knox there. As you say, about as close as you can get. When you see the president talk about this, as he has in the last few days, or Elon Musk, the president kind of talks about a visit to Fort Knox with like a bit of a smile. Are there really, so far as we know, any concrete actual plans for him to go, or is this just kind of a riff? What do we think?
No, it's what some people here have actually asked, if we know when that visit will actually happen. The president has said that he wants it to be soon. Obviously, Elon Musk seems to be pretty into it as well, but there's really no concrete answer to when that would actually be. You also might be asking, do we know from our own reporting if that gold is in there? This is as close as we can get. We're actually on the side of a highway just so we can get a glimpse of that building, Hallie, and police have actually stopped and questioned us. It is very secure here. That's why the residents we've talked to, they are pretty sure that gold has not moved. Now, there's the officer there speaking to our crew here.
You didn't do anything wrong. They were just checking in, right? There was no, not them, just so people know. We're following all the right rules and doing all that. Stephen Romo, live for us there down in Kentucky. Stephen, thank you for being there. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our northern bureau, look at this, a small plane crashing into a mountain in Vermont. All 3 people on board were hurt and had to be airlifted from the mountain. They are expected to be okay, fortunately, but everybody's still trying to figure out why the plane crashed in the first place. Out of our northeastern bureau, more than 3,000 people are out of power tonight after a warehouse fire in Virginia. Firefighters say multiple transformers nearby were blown up. Nobody was hurt, and it's still not clear why the explosion happened. The fire department says they're investigating. To our Western Bureau now, where nearly 60,000 workers at the University of California are on strike in the middle of some pretty heated contract negotiations. 2 unions repping the workers say the university has unfair labor practices. The university, for its part, is accusing the unions of spreading misinformation. The strike's going to affect all 10 UC campuses, including medical facilities across the state. Coming up here on the show, a new moon mission launching just about an hour from now. What that spacecraft's looking for on the moon's south pole next. So tonight, we're set to see the second ever lunar mission by a private company. Athena, this lander created by the company Intuitive Machines, is going to launch on top of a SpaceX rocket to try to find ice water on the surface of the moon. Why is that a big deal? If there's ice water on or under the surface of the moon, maybe the moon can sustain life. Right? That would be a big deal. Also a big deal, what this mission symbolizes, what this mission says about the private partnerships that NASA is trying to build, right? This is just the latest collaboration between NASA and the private sector here in a modern space race that more and more is dominated by, SpaceX from Elon Musk, Blue Origin by Jeff Bezos. This particular company that we'll see tonight, Intuitive Machines, made history just last year by becoming the first private company to land on the surface of the moon, becoming the first U.S. vehicle to land on the lunar surface in more than 50 years. I want to bring in Marissa Parra, who's tracking this one for us. Super interesting here, considering the mission for Athena on the moon's south pole.
Absolutely, especially when you look at how this vehicle is designed. So hopefully we can pull up a graphic or show you a visual. So what you're about to see, this is all part of the IM-2 mission, and this vehicle is called Athena. You mentioned this is built by the Texas-based company Intuitive Machines. The vehicle itself, Athena, is about 14, 15 feet tall. For reference, that's about the size of a giraffe. And if you look, hopefully we can show you in just a moment, it has tools on its vehicle that allow it to drill into the moon's surface. I mean, we're talking about specifically an ice drill. And this is part of the mission because where this is headed is to the moon's south pole. And I will point out, this is a largely unexplored part of the moon. There are deep craters. It is very difficult to build something that can navigate this type of tricky terrain. But the location and the search for ice water is critical, Hallie, because remember, scientists are hoping to use the moon as a gas station, if you will. They're looking to see if they can potentially, if there is ice water, they're looking to see if they can tap into ice water as a critical resource, as rocket fuel, if you will. So they could use this to essentially get to other places within our solar system, like Mars, for instance. So if Athena launches tonight, it's supposed to land in about a week, either on March 6th or the 7th. Hopefully right side up this time, because Hallie, it was just about a year ago that we were talking about Odysseus with the first Intuitive Machines mission, and they lost contact with it. It ended up being kind of sideways, but still a success. But another lunar lander, Blue Ghost, set to land this weekend, March 2nd. So that's 3 lunar landers headed to the moon's surface all at the same time, Hallie, which is pretty remarkable.
Explain how this fits into the bigger space race, too, where we're seeing so much more involvement from these private companies that are really the tip of the spear for U.S. space exploration.
Absolutely. This couldn't be more timely because this is something that came up today during a subcommittee hearing on the Artemis program. You remember, this is the NASA-driven mission to bring humans back to the moon. And they talked about the importance of relying with and working with these private companies, how they need to send these lunar landers first to the moon before we start sending humans, and just the way that we have so heavily watched this program accelerate because of these private companies. I mean, at this moment, this is the only way, SpaceX is our only way of using Americans to get Americans to the International Space Station. So they said, if we are going to be competitive with China, who has the capabilities to bring humans to the moon by 2030, we need to step it up and work closely with these private companies, Hallie.
Marissa Parra, thank you very much for that reporting. Appreciate it. Still to come, the woman at the center of one of the biggest White House scandals, going on one of the biggest podcasts currently, talking about scandals past, why Monica Lewinsky says President Bill Clinton should have resigned. Tonight, a new chapter now in the more than quarter-century saga involving Monica Lewinsky and former President Bill Clinton, with Lewinsky today appearing on the popular podcast Call Her Daddy, saying she thinks Clinton should have resigned over their affair.
I think that the right way to handle a situation like that would have been to probably say it was, nobody's business and to resign. Or to find a way of staying in office that was not lying and not throwing a young person who was just starting out in the world under the bus.
Lewinsky, of course, is referring to what happened back in 1998 when news broke of that 18-month-long sexual relationship between Clinton and Lewinsky. She was a White House intern at the time in her early 20s. It had a huge impact on Lewinsky's reputation, a huge paparazzi and tabloid headline-making situation here. It followed her for years. You see her there. Some of these pictures, she's just mobbed by cameras even years later. It, of course, led to an impeachment of Bill Clinton. He was acquitted at a Senate trial. I want to bring in now NBC's Rahima Ellis, who has more on this. This podcast appearance, she has done, Monica Lewinsky is launching her own series of podcasts, so she's been out in the public eye more. But she's never said something like this before. And she has been asked. She's never gone quite this far.
That's right. And it's interesting that she has talked about in some of the interviews she's been doing lately about why she was going into this and getting into this. And she mentioned that as she was putting together this podcast and working with a young person in all of this. That young person was born in 1999. And that was right on the edge of when all of this happened to Monica Lewinsky. And she realized that this was a whole new audience, a whole new group of people who might not know anything about her story. So listen to how she responds when she is asked about that question that you just asked me.
It kind of felt for me like it was the next step for my own reclaiming and my own experiences of having lost my narrative almost my life at 24. In many ways, that's in the bones of the show. I think this idea of losing something and getting it back.
And now she's 51 years old, and she has a lot more experience and a lot more perspective, if you will, on what happened to her more than 17 years ago.
And back in 1998, Rahima, I mean, the media was extraordinarily tough on her specifically. A Wall Street Journal editorial calling her a little tart. You had Maureen Dowd in the New York Times in an op-ed calling her a ditzy, predatory White House intern. But as you hear Lewinsky talk about this idea of reclaiming, there's been this re-examination in this current era about that particular moment.
Yeah, there has been. And it should be said, because I was reporting here at NBC at that time. And while there was a lot of criticism about Monica Lewinsky, she also had a lot of people who were standing up for her and calling her a victim, someone who had been subjected and misled by an older man, in fact, the most powerful man on the planet. And so there were, and as you point out, Bill Clinton was impeached because of it. It went to the Senate. He was not drummed out of office, but there were a lot of people who were saying that he was responsible, that she should have taken more care of this young woman. As she points out, she had just graduated from college. She was 22 years old, and she was wide-eyed and innocent, and believes that she was taken advantage of by a much more powerful, much more all-knowing man. So here she says an opportunity to reclaim, as she's calling this podcast, she's reclaiming her identity. And she says, in many ways, it's an opportunity for her to be sympathetic to other people who might be trying to do the same thing. Hallie?
That's right. She came out. She started this reclaiming process. She came out, I think it was Vogue, in one of these magazines, kind of trying to reintroduce herself on the national stage, of course, resulting now in this podcast. Rahima Ellis, great to see you. Thank you so much. That does it for us for this hour. I am on assignment tomorrow, but I'll see you Sunday on Nightly News and right back here Monday on NBC News Now. Thanks for watching. More coverage picks up right now. We are coming on the air tonight with a number of headlines from coast to coast, including what's looking more and more like the Musk mission at the White House. The president just now signing a new executive order giving Musk's Doge more power. That's after Elon Musk took center stage at a cabinet meeting he's not even technically a part of. Some of the new threats to federal workers as the president tells agencies to get in line behind the world's richest man. Plus, the new details on the first death from measles in this country in a decade. What the feds are doing now, and what you should know is this fast-moving outbreak sweeps across at least 8 states. Then, what goes up and does not come back down? It may be egg prices, at least this year. Some of the new numbers on just how much more we're expected to pay soon. And shockwaves here in Los Angeles and beyond after the death of actress Michelle Trachtenberg. The new reaction from her co-stars and the questions about what may have happened. Plus, the new move from California's governor signaling he may let the Menendez brothers out of prison. We'll tell you what the family's saying now, coming up later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie on assignment in Los Angeles tonight, but back home in Washington, President Trump in just the last 30 minutes has signed a new executive order that basically gives more power to Elon Musk and his Doge team. And boy, Musk, he was everywhere all at once today. There he is. You see him in the black hat there to the left, showing up at the first cabinet meeting of the Trump administration, dominating the discussion, tripling down on his plans to slash federal jobs and admitting to some Doge growing pains. Watch.
It was a pulse check review. Do you have a pulse? Do you have a pulse and 2 neurons? So if you have a pulse and 2 neurons, you can reply to an email.
Those people are on the bubble, as they say. They're going to be gone.
With USDA, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola, Ebola prevention.
You hear him talking about sort of this accidental reversal on Ebola there. The White House now says moving forward in their plan to cut federal agencies, they need a plan, these agencies, for large-scale layoffs just about 2 weeks from now. The president saying that the EPA, for example, is going to slash 65% of its workforce, some 12,000 people. And then inside these agencies, you've got 1 million people facing more pressure directly from President Trump to hit send on that email justifying their jobs. One leader at the VA speaking anonymously to our team because of fear of backlash, telling us in their words, it's leading to paralysis and nothing is getting done. I want to go right to Gabe Gutierrez, who is live for us just outside the White House. So, Gabe, this new executive order, basically, there had been this question perhaps percolating over the weekend, over the course of the last 72 hours, with some pushback from some of these cabinet officials, thinking Kash Patel at the FBI, for example, against what Elon Musk is trying to do. Not only does it appear that President Trump is blessing Musk's move, he's also now giving him more power with this new EO. Walk us through it.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. If there was any doubt of where Elon Musk stood in this administration, this is just another example that he is pretty high up there. Now, this executive order, as you mentioned, we just are reading through it. This president signed it just a few minutes ago off camera. And basically what it does, as you said, it gives more power to DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and it requires, according to this executive order, that each agency head build a sort of technological system, rather, to track every contract, every payment. It also is freezing credit card payments from government employees for 30 days. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Any workers involved in disaster relief and things like that, those exceptions are carved out. But each agency head is expected to undergo a comprehensive review of contracting policies, procedures, personnel. And this order, though, will not apply to. It's interesting to see who is singled out in this order as it not applying to law enforcement personnel, Customs and Border Protection, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. So there you can certainly see the priorities of this administration. They are not backing down because of any of the backlash they've gotten over the last several days. The administration is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on what it wants to do, which is slash the federal government, Hallie.
That's exactly right. And by the way, worth noting, that is exactly what President Trump and Elon Musk stood side by side on the campaign trail declaring that they would do. So it is not unexpected that this is the mission here. It has been interesting to me, Gabe, as we talk about the reporting around the relationship between Elon Musk and President Trump, that there has not been much indication so far from sources, it appears, and gut check me here, that Musk is flying too close to the sun. In other words, that he is sucking up too much of the oxygen and perhaps irritating the president. That doesn't seem to be the case. The reason I say that is because we've seen that happen in the past with others who have gotten close to the president. Doesn't seem to be the case here.
Yeah, that's right. And critics of Elon Musk over the last several weeks, they were kind of waiting for that to happen. And as you said, it has not happened. The president of the United States, Donald Trump, doesn't let many people stand up in a room that he is in, a cabinet meeting, the first of his new administration, and take questions, speak, and take the attention away from him. Elon Musk did that today. So that clearly shows that Donald Trump not only supports what he's doing, he wants to highlight what he is doing. And I was speaking with White House officials a few weeks ago when Musk first started to get some of this higher profile. And from what we understand, Musk speaks with President Trump several times a day. He checks in with him. And in some cases, you remember a few days ago, earlier in the week, when Musk was getting that backlash to what he had put on social media, Donald Trump really seemed to back him up. He even says that if workers don't respond to that email directive that Musk had sent out, that they, could be fired, that they're on the bubble. He is certainly not backing away from that, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez live for us outside the White House, our senior White House correspondent. Gabe, thank you. Let's take you overseas because we've got some developments there on multiple fronts tonight, including word that the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages have just been handed over to the Red Cross in the last couple of minutes, as the future of the fragile ceasefire deal in that region faces a key deadline Saturday. You're looking now at a live shot of the other piece of this, which is the release of Palestinian prisoners. Again, a live shot here coming into us from the region as we speak. A lot of questions tonight, though, on when phase 2 of this ceasefire could actually begin and what the long-term future of Gaza would actually look like if and when this war ends. And the backdrop to that, new reaction in Gaza to what President Trump apparently wants the future of Gaza to look like in a controversial AI-generated video shared by the president. I want to show it to you here in a second. Beaches, belly dancers. We'll pull up that video. This hotel, Trump Gaza, you see it. It shows the destruction, and then it shows what some vision, apparently AI-generated, of what the president himself has described as the so-called Riviera of the Middle East. Watch. Let's go to Matt Bradley, who's with us tonight now from the region. Let's start with some of those live images and some of the developments that we've learned about in just the last hour or so, including that apparently the Red Cross is carrying the bodies of these Israeli hostages now to a key checkpoint. Matt Bradley, if you can hear me.
Oh, yeah, Hallie. So, excuse me. Yes. So it looks as though this is the culmination of, if you're hearing me now, Hallie.
Yes.
Okay, yes, it looks like this is the culmination, excuse me, Hallie, of what was an hours-long effort to try to save this deal. Now, if you remember, this time last night, it looked as though this final stages of this transfer were really in doubt, even earlier this morning. And then we heard that Hamas had said that they would agree to release them tomorrow. That was moved up to today, where now we've seen those 4 bodies now in Israeli custody, having just crossed over the Kerem Shalom crossing. And now we're seeing some of those hundreds, about more than 600 Palestinian prisoners now being released into the West Bank to their families. Now, some of those prisoners are going to be sent abroad. Some of those are going to be going to the Gaza Strip. So, you know, this exchange really marks the end of the first phase of that deal. But as you mentioned, that deal was supposed to end on March 1st, on Saturday. And now the question is whether or not they're going to be going into phase 2. So far, we've seen no indication, at least no public indication, that either side has really been negotiating to move to phase 2, which would basically see a more permanent end to the hostilities in the Gaza Strip and the full final withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip, at least for now. So, you know, we haven't actually seen that happening. That would be a big game changer. Middle East envoy from the Trump administration, Steve Witkoff, is headed to the Middle East. He was supposed to be there here in Israel today. That got delayed until the weekend. But it looks as though he's going to be trying to push all the parties to get to that phase 2, which again would see more of a real resolution of this horrific conflict that's been going on now for 16 months. But still, it looks as though the first phase, what we're seeing right now on our screens, has actually been completed.
Yeah. Of course, the question looming over all of this, one of them at least, Matt, is what happens if and when this war ends? What happens to Gaza, which has been largely decimated in this war? The president has described his vision, making a lot of headlines when he described this idea of it becoming kind of the Riviera of the Middle East, redeveloping it, for example. There's been a lot of reaction coming in, I know, from teams in Gaza, from people, Palestinians, who are frankly concerned about this. And you're seeing some of the AI-generated images here. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to talk about this, Hallie, because it's unclear how much people are taking this seriously, how much Trump himself is taking this seriously. We heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that this is all just trying to push Arab parties and groups together to try to come up with an alternative solution in order to avoid President Trump's plan, though President Trump has come out afterwards and said he still thinks that his plan to own Gaza Strip and make it into sort of a Riviera type of place, looking more like Las Vegas or Miami than the Gaza Strip, that still is, according to him, the best possible plan. We've already seen Gulf Arab leaders huddling together, trying to come up with an alternative plan. They're going to be huddling together again in early March to come up with an alternative plan. But this is another stumbling block I was mentioning just a moment ago about going from phase 1 to phase 2 of this sort of peace treaty between Hamas and Israel. the question of governance of the Gaza Strip, who will be in charge, that is one of the major stumbling blocks and one of the reasons why we haven't actually seen the parties moving into phase 2. Hallie.
Matt Bradley live for us there in Tel Aviv. Matt, glad to have you with us tonight. Thank you. We've got to get to some other breaking news from overseas now, though. We are just learning in literally the last couple of minutes that the U.S. has carried out a strike against a senior leader of an affiliate of al-Qaeda in Syria, according to 2 U.S. officials. Our Pentagon correspondent, Courtney Kuby, is leading this news for us. She is joining us now from the Pentagon. Courtney, what do we know?
Yeah, so this is one of the leaders of Haras al-Din. Now, Hallie, that's an al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. A lot of people may not be familiar with it, but essentially it took over from al-Nusra Front, which was the al-Qaeda affiliate that was known to be in Syria for years. Haras al-Din has been taking over parts of northern and western Syria for some time. And why this is so significant, this U.S. military airstrike took him out on Sunday. U.S. officials now saying that they have video of the strike hitting the vehicle he was riding in. They believe that he was killed in it. This is the 3rd senior official who was killed as part of Haras al-Din in the last month in Syria. Now, one of the reasons the U.S. has been able to target people like this, his name, by the way, Mohammed Yusuf Ziad Taleh, one of the reasons that the U.S. has been able to target these individuals, these senior leaders, is because of the fall of the Assad regime. So when that happened, many Russian troops were pulled out of some of these areas, and regime troops where the U.S. hadn't been able to target ISIS and al-Qaeda affiliate fighters in those areas. The U.S. now taking out 3 of these fighters. Haras al-Din is trying to really make a resurgence of al-Qaeda there in Syria, and specifically in the northwest, up by the border with Turkey. Now, the big question is this part of a larger campaign that we will see more strikes like this going after these al-Qaeda affiliates? The U.S., of course, continuing to target ISIS fighters as well, further in the east and along the border with Iraq. But as I said, the 3rd of these senior officials of this al-Qaeda affiliate killed now, just in the last several weeks, Hallie.
Courtney Kuby live for us outside the Pentagon Court. Thank you very much for bringing us that brand new reporting. Just breaking. Appreciate that. Some other developing news. We're learning in just the last hour that there's a new case of measles in Texas tonight. Now, it's near Dallas, and it's not believed to be connected to that other outbreak in Texas in the western part of the state. In that outbreak, the one in the west, we're learning about the first death from measles in this country in 10 years. A child who'd been hospitalized as part of that fast-moving outbreak. All we know about this patient, they were a school-aged child, unvaccinated, went into the hospital in Lubbock, Texas last week. The head of the hospital late today saying this.
We have known that we've had measles in our community. We are now seeing a very serious consequence of what happens when we have measles in our community.
This outbreak in rural West Texas has infected more than 120 people. That is like double the number of cases from just a week ago. If you remember, we covered this outbreak here on this show. At the time, it was expected that the number would go up, and it sure has. Most of the people infected are unvaccinated kids and teenagers, with doctors now sounding the alarm, saying people should get the measles shot ASAP before it's too late. I want to bring in Sam Brock, who's joining us now. Can you explain to us the distinction here? Obviously, different regional sort of geographic outbreaks, if you could call it that. One case in Dallas that we've known about, 120 plus in West Texas as well. What's the status of both of these?
So it originated, Hallie, the outbreak in Texas, at least in Gaines County. We're now up to about 80 confirmed cases there. And that appears to be the epicenter from which this outbreak has spread. You're seeing it in the northern tip of the Texas Panhandle, central Texas. Right now, as you mentioned in your introduction, there's no indication right now that the one case in the Dallas area is connected to what happened in West Texas. But the reality is this. When you get to communities traditionally where the vaccination rates are 95% or higher, that's sort of a firewall that's built in. So even if there is a case of measles where someone who is unvaccinated, and in this case, almost all of the Texas cases involve people who are unvaccinated, they travel abroad and then bring it back. If most of the people around them are vaccinated, it's not going to go anywhere. The issue that we're seeing right now in the last couple of decades, but really the last few years, once measles was declared eliminated back in 2000, the last few years you're seeing all these cases popping up in communities like this one originally, a Mennonite community West Texas, where there was not a very high vaccination rate, relatively speaking, and it starts to explode. We've seen the numbers double on a week-to-week basis. So what officials are doing there, this video you're looking at right now, they are propping up testing sites so that people aren't congregating in ERs who are showing or presenting symptoms, because measles is super infectious, Hallie, far more infectious than the flu or, COVID. And so they don't want people spending time together where folks maybe are not vaccinated. The odds of contracting the illness are 90% if you're not vaccinated. Trying to create separation, and certainly the messaging is so important here. The posture from the now HHS Secretary, RFK Jr., is we're not going to stop you from getting a vaccine, as opposed to encouraging people to get vaccines. That is a significant problem, especially when it deals with a disease like the measles that is highly preventable. But now you have a young child, presumably, like you said, we don't know exactly the details, who has died. That is the first death in the United States in a decade. This is what we know. School-age child was not vaccinated, hospitalized in Lubbock, was not originally from Lubbock, was being treated there. And in terms of other updated information that we received tonight, 20-plus people, we've learned, have been hospitalized. Several of them are receiving intensive care right now. So it is clearly a very grave situation.
Sam Brock, thank you very much for that reporting. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Also tonight, a new warning now that egg prices could spike even more by the end of the year, with the USDA predicting they could go up about 41%. Why? You know why. This bird flu outbreak, it's killed 166 million egg-laying chickens in the last few years. So that's messed up the supply and demand, and this could become a potential problem for the Trump administration. Remember, he ran in large part on trying to do more to bring prices down, with growing frustration over inflation, although those numbers had been ticking down. But now you can see here in this new polling, some 53% of Americans say they disapprove of how the current president, President Trump, is handling the economy. Egg prices, in so many ways, becoming a symbol of that. The White House now is laying out the plan for how they're going to try to stop so-called eggflation. You've got the Agriculture Secretary saying today in the Wall Street Journal they're going to invest about $1 billion on things like vaccines and therapeutics for chickens to try to get a handle on the source of this, which is the avian flu. They're also going to import more eggs to fight the spread of the virus and try to bring prices down. Aaron McLaughlin is joining us now. Aaron McLaughlin joins us now. It's a big deal, Aaron, for people's wallets, for their budgets, and for the Trump administration. Almost symbolically, the egg prices becoming a very visceral way that people are relating to what's happened economically here.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And we have been expecting this new strategy to be announced for days now, appearing this morning in an op-ed inside the Wall Street Journal. Let me just walk you through what the U.S. Agriculture Secretary is calling a five-pronged strategy, about $1 billion being dedicated, according to the op-ed, to this effort, up to $500 million for biosecurity measures. Those are measures that are going to make it more difficult for infected wild birds to access these farms. Another measure, up to $400 million of financial relief for farmers with impacted flocks, exploring the use of vaccines and therapeutics for laying chickens. Interesting there that it's exploring the use of vaccines. Some had wondered whether or not the USDA would come out today and approve a vaccine, but this announcement stopping short of that. Also removing regulatory burdens on egg producers and considering temporary import options. I've been speaking to experts, and they are saying that this is a good start, but, this is going to be a long-term effort. There is no quick fix when it comes to the bird flu and then subsequently skyrocketing egg prices.
The idea that there is no quick fix for bird flu is exactly where the problem comes from, right? Because we know that has been such a driver of these higher egg prices. You talk about this strategy here to combat not, of course, the prices, the bird flu, et cetera. What's the timeline on something like that, Aaron? Are we talking about relief within a matter of weeks, months? Will it take longer?
I mean, at this point, it seems from experts I'm talking to be open-ended. One expert that I was just speaking with told me that they still have yet to identify the source of the bird flu in mammals that are carrying the virus and then passing it along to the birds that are infecting flocks nationwide. So there's still much more work to be done, much more work needed on a potential vaccine. And this expert also pointing out that this idea that we might be able to import our eggs to bring bring down the price of eggs across the United States. She was saying, well, where are you going to get those eggs from? Which countries specifically, considering that bird flu is not just isolated to here in the United States, it's also found in other countries as well. So all questions. This plan is broad and short on specifics. So we're waiting for more specifics from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Aaron McLaughlin all over it for us tonight. Aaron, good to see you. Thank you. Also tonight, police are trying to figure out the cause of the death of actress Michelle Trachtenberg. She's just 39 years old. And tonight, we're seeing a lot of new reaction from her co-stars. You probably know Trachtenberg. You may remember her from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, from Gossip Girl, from the movie Harriet the Spy. Watch.
I want to see the whole world, and I want to write down everything. Hey, what are you writing? Notes. Can we read them? Can you read this?
Police say they found Trachtenberg's body early this morning in a New York City apartment after a 911 call. They do not suspect foul play at this point. Over the course of the last year or so, some of Trachtenberg's Instagram posts raised some concerns from fans about her health, but she responded at the time, you see it here, saying there were, in her words, no problems. Chloe Malas is joining us now. This was 39 years old, I think stunning to so many, especially in the generation that kind of grew up with Michelle Trachtenberg, watching her develop in her career as an actress, as, you know, we all grew up too. What happened? Do we have any clues at all here?
Right, Hallie. I mean, I grew up watching Michelle Trachtenberg on screen. We're the same age. This is so devastating for those that have known her since she was a little girl. She started out her film career when she was just 9 years old, when she had her breakout role in Harriet the Spy. And look, like you said, she was really active on social media, and she wasn't shy to comment back to people that were criticizing her appearance. She was just spotted downtown here in New York City at a restaurant that's incredibly popular just last week. She also posted on social media about getting her hair done the other day. So obviously people had no idea if she was suffering with any sort of health struggles behind the scenes. But like you said, police found her unresponsive in her New York City apartment earlier today. There are a lot of reports out there that possibly it was her mother that initially found her and called 911. But in a statement to NBC News, a representative for Michelle Trachtenberg saying that it is with great sadness to confirm that Michelle Trachtenberg has passed away and that the family requests privacy for their loss, but they're not sharing, Hallie, any other further details at this moment.
But so many people who worked with Trachtenberg are remembering her tonight, right?
Right. And one of those is actually from Harriet the Spy, and it's Rosie O'Donnell. And she took to social media to say that it's heartbreaking, and she loved her very much, and that she wished that she could have helped. And she alluded to Michelle having struggles over the last couple years. But again, there's just a lot that we don't know, but the tributes are continuing to pour in. And she, you know, was also in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She was in Gossip Girl and also played these iconic characters on TV as well.
Chloe Malas, thank you for staying on top of this one. Really appreciate that. Coming up here later in the show, the governor of California ordering the state's parole board to weigh the risks of freeing the Menendez brother, what it means for their latest push to get out of prison. Plus, a new medical drama details life inside a Pittsburgh ER, why a new lawsuit claims it's a total ripoff. Next. So a family spokesperson for the Menendez brothers saying today she is beyond thrilled that California's governor is ordering the parole board here to do a so-called risk assessment on the brothers, currently serving a life sentence for killing their parents. Listen.
And that is a really important first step to commutation. It is not a guarantee. Okay, so it's a really important first step, but there are no guarantees.
So what is this first step? What does that even mean? What is this risk assessment? It's basically this investigation that's performed by experts to determine whether or not the brothers are fit to go back out and be in the real world. There's a couple of paths to freedom, potentially, for the Menendez brothers right now. One option is if the governor gives clemency, right? Grants clemency, that's that. Another option is a possible resentencing. There's a hearing coming up on that soon. And then there's this third option, this habeas corpus petition challenging the conviction altogether. But that's kind of been put to bed since the Los Angeles district attorney says he's against a new trial. Liz Kreutz is joining us now. You really have covered this for a while since this has gone on, and you've laid out kind of these paths here that they're starting to converge around California Governor Gavin Newsom. That ultimately, if these steps continue, he is going to be the one to make the final decision at the end of the day. Do we have any sense? And we saw him on the podcast. He's going to do this risk assessment. He really hasn't tipped his hand much beyond that to which way he's leaning here.
In any way, no. This is the biggest move that we've seen from him. Up until now, he's really stayed out of it. He said he's going to wait for the district attorney to make his recommendation. This shows that he's sort of starting to dip his toe in, but not revealing in any way where he stands. And he even has said in his podcast, he said, just because we're taking this step, don't get your hopes up, Menendez brothers supporters. We do this often for clemency requests. This is part of the standard process. We have to do this assessment. And then from there, we'll make the determination. And there's times where they do determine that they will grant clemency. And there's many times clearly where they don't. So we don't know yet. But yes, at the end of the day, even if resentencing happens and a judge grants that, it ultimately goes to the parole board and then to Governor Newsom.
Talk about this risk assessment, too, because this is basically this determination, as we said. Are the Menendez brothers at risk of doing more crimes, committing crimes when they're out of prison here?
Yeah, so they're going to be looking at what their 35 years have been like in prison, their prison files. And they have a pretty good, clean prison file for the most part. Both of the brothers do. They've talked a lot about how they've started programs in prison to help other prisoners, that they've helped create green spaces in prison. They really say that they are new men, that they have been rehabilitated, and their supporters, and particularly their family, the reason they're so happy to see this step by the governor is they feel like this is really their strongest argument they have, that these are two men who have paid the price for their heinous crimes, that they are new, good men, and that they deserve to be out, that they're not going to commit crimes when they get out.
We are showing some of the, what we call here, file video, or like older video of the Menendez brothers from when they were younger. This, to remind, like this case was such a huge deal when it happened in the 90s, right? I mean, it spun off for years, for decades, podcasts, documentaries, shows, et cetera, about these brothers.
Yeah, 1989 is when it happened. Then the two trials lasted basically all through the 90s. And then now it's had this resurgence with a whole new generation of true crime fans getting to know this story because of so many documentaries, the Netflix series, and they have a whole bunch of sympathetic supporters online that want them out.
Maggie, Liz Kreutz, it's great to see you. Thank you so much.
We get confused a lot.
I'm like so glad it's in LA, of all places, which I'm thrilled to see you for. Thank you so much, Liz. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Vatican says the Pope had another peaceful night after spending his 13th day at a hospital in Rome getting treatment for double pneumonia. Doctors say he was able to sit up in an armchair while he's keeping up with oxygen therapy. Still not clear if he's in critical condition. That's a designation here, but we expect to know more in the days to come. Number 2, an American company is now picking back up the search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 more than a decade after it vanished. The company says there have been a lot of tech advances, which makes them hopeful that they could actually find some of the wreckage. I know you remember this back in 2014 when that flight, that plane veered off course and disappeared with 289 people on board. Number 3, a judge is allowing the estate of ER creator, you know, the ER, the show, Michael Crichton, to pursue a lawsuit now against a new medical drama, The Pit. Crichton's widow argued the new show is basically an unauthorized reboot of ER. They're suing Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers tried to get the case dismissed last month. They did not immediately return our request for comment. Number 4, the birth rate in South Korea going up last year for the first time in nearly a decade. South Korea has the world's lowest birth rate, statistically 0.75 babies per every woman. So the country's been trying to get young people to get married and have kids after declaring a national demographic crisis. Number 5, check this out. A captain on a boat in California capturing rare video of a dolphin superpod. Look at that, 2,000 dolphin off the coast of Monterey Bay. And in that group, some northern right whale dolphins, which are usually seen way further offshore and in deeper water, too. It's pretty incredible to watch. Just some new warnings now from some news organizations today after the White House says it will be up to them to choose which outlets will be part of that so-called press pool, with access to the president at meetings and events to then share widely with the rest of the media and thus with America. It's a move that breaks with decades of precedent. Reuters, the Associated Press, and Bloomberg News, the wire services that are part of that permanent White House pool, saying the move could threaten the spread, as they put it, the spread of reliable information to people, communities, businesses, and global financial markets that heavily depend on our reporting. We talked about what a pool is before, right? I was a part of it for a little bit back in the first Trump term there. It's when you basically go as you're a journalist. You represent. You're not there working for your network or working for your outlet. You're there to represent really all of the White House Correspondents Association, the press corps, all of America, basically. You're sending out real-time updates. See all those people in the room. They can't open it up to every single media member who wants to be in there because you'd have hundreds of people in the Oval Office. They just don't have the space, right? So that's how the pool came to be. They travel with the president. It's a matter of sort of being there to report out widely what's going on. So why the new policy now? The White House press secretary says it is in place to let, in her words, more new media outlets share in that privilege and responsibility. Listen.
Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join. Fear not. But we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility.
Well, let me get to Yasmin Vasugian, who's joining us now. So it's a development here, and I want to be like super honest with people and transparent in the way that we are. This isn't like about being navel-gazy here, and it's about looking at sort of what tradition and precedent has been. The White House Correspondents Association has always advocated for more access, just generally, to the president of any administration, of any political party in the past. You always want to get more people to see what's going on in the halls of power. That is like a basic tenet here. And so, you know, more access, a good thing. There's questions, though, about how this is going down. So explain it to us and why it matters to the broader public.
And by the way, it's more access that is unbiased, right, to make sure it's disseminated to the audience through a lens that doesn't give any kind of opinion as to kind of what is being said inside, for instance, the Oval Office. And I got to love how, by the way, your throwback to your time in the White House, I was kind of a part of the pool. You were a little bit more than kind of a part of the pool,
well, yes,
my friend.
But I was privileged to represent the pool, because when you, I just want to tell people, when you, I think there's, like, people don't know, when you go in, I didn't go in as a pool reporter representing NBC, right? I went in representing all media, right? Like, I wasn't in there, they call it unilateral. I wasn't in there unilaterally just for our network. Anything that I got, any question that I asked, any answer that I got from the first term in President Trump would go widely to everybody, right? And that's the point, is to sort of be the eyes and ears for the rest of the world.
And because you're part of the big five, right? NBC, ABC, CBS, and every week we're like, okay, who's a member of the pool who's going to be taking the information from the White House? And as you mentioned, there's going to be a radio reporter as well as a rotation of print reporters that are part of normally this pool. And this has literally been since essentially the dawn of time of the White House Correspondents Association, which, by the way, began, for a little bit of a history lesson here, back, I believe, in 1914. But now the White House is essentially saying, nope, that's not going to happen anymore. We are changing historical precedent here, and we are going to determine who, in fact, is kind of a part of this quote-unquote pool. And what they're saying is, well, we want to open this up to, for instance, the streamers and the podcasters. And listen, we all know streamers, podcasters are becoming a much bigger part of the media landscape than they ever have been before. Folks are watching on streaming right now. This is NBC News Now, a part of NBC News. Yes, the bigger kind of sister, but nonetheless, you're watching on a streamer. They're saying we want to give access to those folks, and the White House press secretary is essentially saying they want to give them the awesome responsibility, a part of the awesome responsibility to be part of this pool. The White House Correspondents Association, though, saying in part in a statement expressing worry that this could give access to outlets that are more, for instance, friendly towards the president and his administration, giving a more partial view of the news coming out of the White House, and going on to say in a statement, it suggests the government will choose the journalists who cover the president. And I will say, as you mentioned, when it's coming from Reuters, when it's coming from Bloomberg, when it's coming from the AP, the wires, as you mentioned, they said it is essential in a democracy for the public to have access to news about their government from an independent free press. We believe that any steps by the government to limit the number of wire services with access to the president threatens that principle. So there's a lot, Hal, of back and forth here, which is not surprising.
Let me just also ask you about another sort of media story we'll put in that bucket related to the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos, people know who he is, of course, Amazon, Blue Origin, et cetera. He is retooling the opinion section of the paper. Not the news section, right, but the op-ed, the opinion section. He says they're no longer going to publish opinion editorials that are not supportive of, quote, free markets and personal liberties. What is he saying about this? What's the rationale? And what's the fallout? Because there's been some, right? The current editor is now a former editor.
Yeah, current editor of the op-ed pages has, in fact, resigned. There is talk of more resignations coming from the Washington Post amidst this as well. Folks that have been with the Washington Post for over decades now saying they no longer want to be working for the Washington Post so long as Jeff Bezos owns the paper. And his direct quote essentially saying he will not publish anything in those op-ed pages unless it's in defense of civil liberties and free markets. Just to be clear here, the definition of op-ed is opposite of editorial pages. This is a kind of an unprecedented moment that someone like Jeff Bezos, the owner of a paper like this, would make this decision about the opinion pages. I will also reference a statement that we got from Bezos, which was a little bit longer than what I just read, in which he said there was a time when a newspaper, especially one that was a local monopoly, might have seen it as a service to bring to the reader's doorstep every morning a broader-based opinion section that sought to cover all views. Today, the internet does that job. There is one person, Hal, though, that is obviously being vehemently supportive of Jeff Bezos amidst all this, and I think you can guess who that is, and that is Elon Musk.
Yasmin Vasugian, thank you very much for that
Thanks,
breakdown.
Hal.
Good to see you. After the break, why Drake is postponing the rest of his shows in Australia and New Zealand. Plus, we sent our Stephen Romo to Fort Knox for a reality check on a swirling conspiracy theory. Hey, Stephen.
Yeah, Hallie, President Trump says he wants to head to Fort Knox to make sure all that gold is still there, even though his top advisors, current and former, say that it is. We spoke to people here in the area to find out what they think about the gold inside. We'll bring that to you when we come back.
To tonight's Original Now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's that pledge from President Trump to go check out Fort Knox to see if the gold that's supposed to be there is actually there. Here's the thing. As far as we know, the gold is there. There's nothing to indicate it's not. There are regular audits. The president's own current Treasury Secretary says it's there. His previous Treasury Secretary says it's there. But the whole thing speaks to a broader issue of how the most powerful man in the free world gets his information and what he does with it. We send our Stephen Romo to Fort Knox for a reality check.
The people who live near Fort Knox have heard pretty much all the conspiracy theories.
Who would have taken the gold? As far as the missing gold, I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that.
About the federal facility at the heart of town where a huge chunk of the country's gold supply is stored. What's not a secret, President Trump's long love affair with gold, from bars with his name on it to signs outside his Manhattan home. And that famous golden escalator that started his political career. He's now making a promise to find out once and for all, is the gold still there?
We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there, because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold. Wouldn't that be terrible if we opened it up and there was no gold there? If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset.
Despite the president's speculation, there's no evidence the gold is not there, which we'll get into in just a bit.
Fort Knox is one of the most secure places in this country, so I am 100% sure that the gold is there.
But those conspiracies, almost as old as the first deposits back in 1937.
Minimum offensive fire until I signal bomb has been neutralized.
With the mystery driven by the 1964 James Bond film Goldfinger, after its villain tried to tank the economy by ruining the gold supply. Of course, the U.S. doesn't rely on gold anymore to back the dollar, a change finalized by Richard Nixon in 1971, but we still keep a ton of it, or really tons of it, locked up. An expert we asked told us it's basically collateral.
There might be foreign currency reserves, there might be gold reserves, and this increases the confidence that the dollar is sound.
The U.S. Mint says about half of the country's gold is at Fort Knox. The whole thing built under thousands of tons of steel and concrete, heavily guarded. And secrecy is part of the point.
This is for the unbelievers. Okay.
The vault only opened twice since FDR. The first time in September 1974 for a group of journalists and members of Congress to dispel rumors the gold was gone. The second time during the first Trump administration, when then Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin got a look for himself.
The gold was there when I visited it. I hope nobody's moved it. I'm sure they haven't.
So did Kentucky's Republican governor at the time, who's dismissing the conspiracies this week.
It is so ridiculously secured that it is not possible to sneak anything out of there.
In fact, it's so secure, they don't want us filming anywhere near that building that has the gold. This is about as close as we could get. So where could the president have gotten the idea that the gold might not be there? As with so many right-wing conspiracies, Alex Jones, the man who had to liquidate his assets to pay for massive defamation verdicts over the lies he spread about the Sandy Hook school shooting.
In the last 40-something years, most of our gold was sent overseas.
Then picked up in a tweet by Elon Musk, who said it'd be cool to do a walkthrough at Fort Knox.
Yeah, we want to go see it.
But even the president's new Treasury Secretary says everything is accounted for.
We do an audit every year, so the audit that ended the year September 30th, 2024, all the gold is present and accounted for.
It's all getting extra attention as the price of the precious metal hits records, close to $3,000 an ounce. But that gold at Fort Knox is not on the market. Back in town, residents embracing their role, and the people say they're ready for the president's visit, whenever that might be.
Oh, I'd love to see him come to Fort Knox. It'd be awesome.
The president wants to come. Let's hear for our kids.
Whether that proof would be enough to convince naysayers is an open question.
Stephen Romo is live for us. Where else outside Fort Knox? Are those the lights? I think those are the lights behind you back there. It's interesting because this area is near some counties that voted for President Trump, by like 75 to 25, basically. I can imagine they would want him to visit if he actually will, but I'm not sure there's any indication that those plans are actually concretely in the works.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic, to be honest, Hallie. The people here are certain. They're pretty sure that gold is still in there. They think they would see if it had been moved out. But they also welcome the president to come and visit. They think that he's probably wrong to even doubt that it's here, but they would be glad to see him. There's a lot of support for him here, so they say it'd be historic, and they'd love to. I would have loved to have gone and checked myself, but like you mentioned, this is about as close as we can get. You can see those lights off in the distance. Yeah, that's where the gold is.
That's not so bad. I mean, you got closer than honestly I thought you would. I figured you'd be like a state over, but there you go. Stephen Romo, live for us there in Fort Knox. Stephen, thank you for going down for that reality check. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Mexico, police say they found a Texas couple dead in their Mexico City vacation rental. Officials say a woman in the building tried knocking on their door multiple times but got no response. When she let herself in, she found them unconscious and called police. No word on their cause of death. Out of South Africa, firefighters are trying to bring wildfires on the famous Table Mountain under control outside Cape Town. Remember, it's summer there right now, and while fire officials say there's been significant progress, they're not putting their guard down, not letting their guards down just yet. They're going to stay around in case those winds pick back up. And out of Australia and New Zealand, Drake's rep tells NBC the rest of his sold-out tour dates there will be postponed. Why? Scheduling conflict, they say. It affects 4 shows. Apparently, new dates will be rescheduled soon. The rapper has been touring there since before Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show, by the way, where he performed that massively humongous hit diss on Drake, Not Like Us. Also today, Amazon rolling out a big update to Alexa, which will be able to do more stuff thanks to AI. It'll be able to have whole conversations, control your smart home devices, order groceries, make restaurant reservations, even remember things about you and your family, like what you like to eat. Amazon says this Alexa Plus will be your digital best friend, but it's putting a price on that friendship, charging a fee for the new features. Here's the CEO.
It's not just that she's really smart and can be conversational, but she can also do something that you just don't see today in these chatbots, which is take real actions and get real things done.
Here's the thing, though. There are some concerns now being raised about whether Alexa should, in fact, be in people's business all that much. A recent survey from CNET says about 73% of people who use these, like, smart home devices or whatever, 73% of them have concerns with AI when it comes to those voice assistants. More than half of them, by the way, don't want to pay any more for those features. CNBC's Kate Rooney has more.
Hi, Hallie. So yeah, Amazon unveiling this new revamped version of Alexa, Alexa Plus. They're going to be charging $19.99 a month, and then it is going to be free for Prime subscribers. It does bring Alexa into this modern era of AI, sort of the ChatGPT era. And the irony here is that Alexa was a leader in AI. The devices have been on the market for about a decade, where they have deep roots in natural language processing and machine learning, but they really have not been able to keep up in this new era of generative AI and what a lot of us now expect from some of the smartest chatbots out there. Most people still use Alexa for things like a kitchen timer or to play music. The demo we saw today showed a totally new Alexa as more of a virtual assistant that could actually take actions, things like booking dinner reservations, ordering groceries. We saw it book an Uber at one point. It also has access to things like your calendar and your contacts. CEO Andy Jassy describing it as re-architecting the brain of Alexa. Here's what he told CNBC earlier.
We're really excited to announce Alexa Plus today. It's our next generation of personal assistant. She's smarter, she's more capable, she's more useful, and you can do all the things you've been doing with Alexa for 10 years, but just every single one of those functions gets better with generative AI, the way we built it in.
This does require a lot of technology under the surface. Amazon executives called Alexa agnostic on the underlying tech, but it is using partially Amazon's own Nova technology, as they call it, and then a startup partner called Anthropic. The bar is really high for this. It does not fully roll out for another month or so, and they're going to have to strike this balance of making sure that Alexa can still complete some of the tasks, like setting a kitchen timer and doing that accurately, while also upping her game and having some of those more in-depth conversations and really wowing consumers. This is Amazon's big AI debut, and Andy Jassy, the CEO, calling it practical AI. This is really their real-world use case. If the tech is as useful as the demonstration made it seem today, could drive device sales and Prime subscriptions. The stock has been higher on the back of all of this news. Hallie, back to you.
Kate Rooney, thank you very much from CNBC. Still to come here at the show, the woman at the center of one of the biggest White House scandals of the last 25 years, going on one of the biggest podcasts that exists now. Why Monica Lewinsky says President Bill Clinton should have resigned. Tonight, a new chapter now in the more than quarter-century saga involving Monica Lewinsky and former President Bill Clinton. With Lewinsky today appearing on the popular podcast Call Her Daddy, saying she thinks Clinton should have resigned over their affair.
I think that the right way to handle a situation like that would have been to probably say it was, nobody's business and to resign. Or to find a way of staying in office that was not lying and not throwing a young person who was just starting out in the world under the bus.
Lewinsky, of course, is referring to what happened back in 1998 when news broke of that 18-month-long sexual relationship between Clinton and Lewinsky. She was a White House intern at the time in her early 20s. It had a huge impact on Lewinsky's reputation, a huge paparazzi and tabloid headline-making situation here. It followed her for years. You see her there. Some of these pictures, she's just mobbed by cameras even years later. It, of course, led to an impeachment of Bill Clinton. He was acquitted at a Senate trial. I want to bring in now NBC's Rahima Ellis, who has more on this. This podcast appearance, she has done, Monica Lewinsky is launching her own series of podcasts, so she's been out in the public eye more. But she's never said something like this before. And she has been asked, she's never gone quite this far.
That's right. And it's interesting that she has talked about in some of the interviews she's been doing lately about why she was going into this and getting into this. And she mentioned that she was putting together this podcast and working with a young person in all of this. That young person was born in 1999. And that was right on the edge of when all of this happened to Monica Lewinsky. And she realized that this was a whole new audience, a whole new group of people who might not know anything about her story. So listen to how she responds when she is asked about that question that you just asked me.
It kind of felt for me like it was the next step for my own reclaiming and my own experiences of having lost my narrative almost my life at 24. In many ways, that's in the bones of the show. I think this idea of losing something and getting it back.
And now she's 51 years old, and she has a lot more experience and a lot more perspective, if you will, on what happened to her more than 17 years ago.
And back in 1998, Rahima, I mean, the media was extraordinarily tough on her, specifically a Wall Street Journal editorial calling her a little tart. You had Maureen Dowd in the New York Times in an op-ed calling her a ditzy, predatory White House intern. But as you hear Lewinsky talk about this idea of reclaiming, there's been this re-examination in this current era about that particular moment.
Yeah, there has been. And it should be said, because I was reporting here at NBC at that time. And while there was a lot of criticism about Monica Lewinsky, she also had a lot of people who were standing up for her and calling her a victim, someone who had been subjected and misled by an older man, in fact, the most powerful man on the planet. And so there were, and as you point out, Bill Clinton was impeached because of it. It went to the Senate. He was not drummed out of office, but there were a lot of people who were saying that he was responsible, that she should have taken more care of this young woman. As she points out, she had just graduated from college. She was 22 years old, and she was wide-eyed and innocent, and believes that she was taken advantage of by a much more powerful, much more all-knowing man. So here she says is an opportunity to reclaim, as she's calling this podcast, she's reclaiming her identity. And she says, in many ways, it's an opportunity for her to be sympathetic to other people who might be trying to do the same thing. Hallie?
That's right. She came out. She started this reclaiming process. She came out, I think it was Vogue, in one of these magazines, kind of trying to reintroduce herself on the national stage, of course, resulting now in this podcast. Rahima Ellis, great to see you. Thank you so much. That does it for us for this hour. I am on assignment tomorrow, but I'll see you Sunday on Nightly News and right back here Monday on NBC News Now. Thanks for watching. More coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.